the first Naruto vs Bleach matchup that I've done on my channel other than reacting to Death Battle Madara vs Aizen video. So I imagine it's gonna get a bit nasty, maybe a bit toxic in the comments, but regardless of who you think wins, just hear out the arguments first. And if you can do that, I'm proud to present the founder of a Gotei 13, Captain Genryūsai Yamamoto, versus the god of Shinobi, the first Hokage Hashirama Senju. Now both are considered OGs and have that founder type of vibe and lore about them. It's pretty interesting to match up two characters who I think are kind of similar, but at the same time kind of have opposing powers, elementally that is. The version of Yamamoto I'm going to be using is the one with both arms, because when he loses one arm he grows drastically weaker. The Hashirama that I'll be using is the one who fought Madara when he was alive at the Final Valley. I've probably heard already, Sefa Programmer's animation project for Naruto vs Ichigo matchup has been cancelled, unfortunately, but that kind of motivates me into wanting to do this video now. So I will do Naruto vs Ichigo if I reach 20k subscribers, so please help me get that. And the reason it's been delayed for so long up until this point is pretty much because the anime hasn't really returned yet, and it's gonna gain in popularity when the anime returns. There should be new content as well that should give us more context to certain abilities that might change the outcome of a fight, so keep a lookout for that. So without further ado, let's get into this video. Genryūsai Yamamoto is the captain commander of the entire Gotei 13. You know, he's considered by most people to be one of the most powerful Shinigami in history, or Soul Reapers. His Zanpakuto sword is called Rujinjaka. In 13 blades, I think it's said to be the strongest fire-type Zanpakuto, and has an even greater offensive power than any other Zanpakuto in the Soul Society. Now in the Karakura Town arc, Aizen admits that Yamamoto is more powerful than himself, and he came up with specific strategies to deal with Yamamoto's Zanpakuto. So it definitely makes sense that he'd be stronger than Aizen, at least at that point. Aizen, at least at the time, was stronger than any member of the Espada, and led them purely based on the fact that he was more powerful than them and they respected him. This would make him stronger and faster than Ukiura Cypher. In his base form, Ukiura should be faster than Aranjaro, who is narratively meant to be faster than Light. I say that because he's meant to avoid light, he can't touch sunlight, and we even see him move out the way of sunlight, so it'd just be weird if he was slower than Light. He should also be faster than Gillian-type Menos who can fire light-based attacks, like Venegashion, and Fodder Quincy, who are even weaker than that, can fire rays of light. What's more impressive is Ukiura can apply something called Resurrection, which makes him anywhere between 5 and 10 times faster. I say that because the Resurrection is meant to be a similar increase to Ichigo's Bangkai, which is like a 5 to 10 times speed increase. So it should be at least 5 times faster than the speed of light. Ukiura then surprisingly has this second Resurrection, where again he's meant to gain another similar increase. So if we lowball and say Ukiura gets 5 times faster and then another 5 times faster on top of that, it should be 25 times faster than the speed of light. So Shikai Yamamoto should be faster than that without a doubt. And then obviously he has his own Bangkai, making him anywhere between 5 and 10 times faster. If we lowball again, if he's 5 times faster than that would make him 125 times faster than the speed of light. So he's pretty fast, and I want you to remember that number. So now we know how fast he is, how strong is he exactly? Well, more interestingly, we know Yuha states that the only Quincy powerful enough to stop or control the power of Yamamoto's Bangkai is himself, which would include the likes of Gremmy, the most powerful, or self-proclaimed most powerful Stern Racer. Since that make Bangkai Yamamoto stronger than Gremmy, we should probably establish how strong Gremmy is exactly. All we know is Gremmy has the Visionary, which is a power that turns imagination into reality. He can change the properties of things, he can duplicate himself, make his body stronger than steel, summon meteors, planets, and even create the void of outer space. He can create these things out of thin air, but he can also make them by materializing them. To materialize means to transpire, cause, make happen, or appear in physical form. So his ability functions in 2 ways, well, can function in 2 ways. Number 1, creation from nothing. Number 2, creation through bringing already existing objects to his opponent. When he fought Kenpachi, he managed to conjure up this meteor to destroy Vicerate. It was inevitably sliced in half and destroyed by Kenpachi. Gremmy then created this weird bubble thing around Kenpachi, which he called being wrapped by outer space. Now, outer space is defined as the physical universe beyond Earth's atmosphere. This explains why we see a galaxy or cluster of stars in the background. So what's happened is he's wrapped Kenpachi inside of a world of a living's real space to choke and suffocate him. So he didn't just conjure it up, it already existed. Now it is stated that Gremmy created outer space in the Serity, so I don't think he's created it like out of nothingness, like he's a duplicate or something. Otherwise it would just encompass everything within that space. But no, rather he made it appear in the Serity, and we see like this strip, or this portal. But we're given further context when it's stated that he materialized it. So by creation, what's happened here is that he's made it appear. When we see Kenpachi inside of this, it's probably a portal because we can see that Kenpachi is inside of a strip of space which is bigger on the inside than it is outside. We can see cracks around it, so to me it seems like he's made Kenpachi appear in his space via maybe a portal. Being able to create outer space might actually just mean him imagining the outcome of Kenpachi in outer space. So once he's imagined the outcome of Kenpachi in this space, he begins shutting the portal, and it's only then Kenpachi shoves his hand through it to escape to the Viserys. To make something appear is to bring it into sight, to make it visible, noticeable, especially apparent without cause. If a magician made a bunny appear out of his hat, it doesn't mean he created the bunny, well at least not physically, but he created it in the sense that he made it appear. But it isn't as simple as that. His imagination has to exist in the realm of possibility, so he's limited to a degree. For example, he admitted that he wasn't creative enough to kill Kenpachi because he was too durable. We know he can imagine at least random planets next to each other, so it could possibly be planet level creation, but it's hard to say. He should be able to make Kenpachi appear inside supernovas, even possibly black holes hypothetically, but apparently his creativity came up short against how durable Kenpachi was, so maybe Kenpachi could survive those phenomena? Or it could just be that Gremmy wasn't creative enough and he didn't think of those? Does he know what they look like? Possibly. But did he use them against Kenpachi? No. So I can't really say how strong Gremmy is, therefore we don't know how strong Yamamoto is based off that. But there is something we could use for Yamamoto. 1000 years ago, he beat Yuha with the Almighty, and has only got stronger since then, whereas Yuha probably hasn't got stronger, not until I think he absorbs the Soul King and Mimihagi. The beginning part of the war was really about him regaining his Almighty. It's not like he's been training or anything. Yamamoto even implies that the reason he couldn't steal his Bangkai is because he's forever evolving, and even 1000 years ago, Yamamoto held back against him, and he never truly revealed to him the full extent of his Bangkai. He has remained unsurpassed by any other Soul Reaper for the last 1000 years. That would include the likes of a Zero Division and Transcendent Aizen. Unless you believe Transcendent Aizen isn't really a Soul Reaper anymore because he transcended that. But in all fairness, Shunsui believed that Yamamoto's power was more comparable to that Transcendent Aizen than he was the other captains, so within that realm of power. Even if he was weaker, he should still be in the same tier as Transcendent Aizen. And Aizen almost became this unbeatable force at the time. He would have just stormed the Soul Palace and beat up the Zero Division and killed the Soul King. That would make him stronger than Ichibei, the leader of the Zero Division, who even gave Yuha a decent fight, at least before he gained his true full power. So Yamamoto should be near that top tier power within Bleach. Even with just one arm, he was still stated to be the strongest captain. Although I will say, after losing his arm, he became drastically weaker, like a lot weaker. We know when characters in Bleach lose limbs, arms, etc., what happens is they grow weaker, hence the Soul King is weaker with his body chopped up. We know Yamamoto with both arms should be stronger than the Zero Division, meaning he's stronger than Ichibei, who gave Yuha actually a good fight and even damaged his blood vein, something that a one-armed Yamamoto just couldn't do. Yamamoto might also be able to rival maybe a weakened Soul King, but when he lost that one arm, Yamamoto got a lot weaker. He wasn't able to contend with the real Yuha. He got absolutely bodied by him. Yuha literally arrived, chopped his body in half, chopped his hand off. It was completely a one-sided stomp. And he even states that Yuha has grown weaker since the last time he fought him 1000 years ago. And 1000 years ago, he gave the almighty Yuha a good fight. Albeit Yuha does say that Ichibei is like the pinnacle of Shimigami. But this might just be because he has better abilities than Yamamoto, not that he's actually physically stronger than Yamamoto. So that would naturally make Yamamoto around the level of Yuha, even one who had absorbed the Soul King, even though that might be stretching it. The same Yuha who lifted the Wandenreich, one of the most insane telekinetic feats within the whole series, in which Yuha lifted his entire country, which was built from 5 cities, and brought them to the Soul Palace. The Soul Palace, which exists in another dimension to the Soul Society, within his sky, requiring a key. Yuha deconstructs the Soul Palace, and fuses it with the Wandenreich, in order to create his new land. Shunsui claims that Yuha, to pull off a feat of this magnitude, would require an absurd level of power, and he isn't wrong. Now, merging these two lands across 2 very far distances in only a couple of minutes is calculated to require anywhere between 1 and 13 yotatons of TNT, which is enough energy to destroy larger planets than Earth. Now, I don't think it's that far-fetched to say that Yamamoto is at least in the same realm of power as that, so I wouldn't be surprised if he's planet level, perhaps capable of destroying larger planets. I'm not saying he could do that, I'm just saying that he could scale to characters who can do that, like this Yuha, for example. And that's how strong I think Yamamoto is. He truly is a captain among captains, remember? Now we can talk about Hashirama. Hashirama Senju was a member of the famed Senju clan. He himself was hailed as a god of Shinobi for his unmatched ninja prowess. You guys know the story. who's capable of also beating up the Biju. He captured them, made them his pets, and even distributed them across the great nations, which is super impressive. Some people even argue that Kurama can turn the world to ash, but this doesn't necessarily mean he's gonna like blow it up or something. It could just refer to him life wiping the planet, ending the world as in destroying society. It is also stated that Kurama can shatter the earth. But if you take into consideration what the kanji means, by earth is talking about the ground, not literally the name of a planet. So this can rather be translated to shattering the land. Overall, I think it's more consistent for somebody like Kurama to be life-wiping and ending the world that way. Regardless, Hashirama scales above all of this. Even in his base form, he should be faster than KCM1 or Kurama mode Naruto, who was capable of blitzing the Raikage. The Raikage was capable of moving at the speed of light, at least according to the 4th data book, and it is pretty consistent considering the random Jonin who can fire light speed attacks, so it'd just be weird if the Raikage, one of the fastest ninja, could not move out the way of those. Now if you lowball this feat, it can be calculated anywhere between 10 to 50 times faster than the speed of light. If we take the low end and say 10 times, then Hashirama should at least in his base form be 10 times faster than the speed of light. After applying his Sage mode, he should be granted a multiplier greater than the weaker Sage transformations like the Curse Mark II for example, which is like this over 10 times amplification apparently, meaning Hashirama very well could be 10 times 10, which is 100 times faster than the speed of light, which would make him slightly slower than Yamamoto, remember, who we calculate to be roughly 125 times faster than the speed of light, but they should be able to keep up with each other. After Hashirama activates his Sage mode, he should be far beyond the Biju, even rivaling stronger beings. As a weakened reanimation, he manages to use Deity Gates to restrain the Ten Tails, and is stated to match the power of the Ten Tails using his absolute binding force. Remember, the Ten Tails is this accumulation of all the tailed beasts, for the exception of most of Kurama. The Ten Tails in his second stage, the one that Hashirama bind down, had chakra comparable to a small planet. If you were to use material from Road to Ninja, the 1 to 7 tails accumulatively granted Obito the power to duplicate all of reality, possibly creating a universe, but it has the same problem as all the grimy stuff. It's a little bit ambiguous how this creation takes place, how it functions, and also it might not make sense narratively scaling wise. So just to stay on the safe end, we know Hashirama at least is small planet level when reanimated. But if you take a step further, when Hashirama was alive, he was considered Madara's rival, and perhaps even his superior. Madara, even when revived and blind, with Hashirama's Sage power, was stated to still only be regaining his final valley level of power, meaning Hashirama is stronger than that Madara, and that Madara was stated to be the strongest villain, at least at the time, even having a trump card against Ten Tails Jinchuriki Obito, consistently scaling above him. And this Obito was gonna obliterate the world, using the sword of Nunobuko. He was under the impression that Hagoromo used the staff to create the world, and with it, he was gonna destroy the planet. So we know Hagoromo didn't create the world. The important thing is, Obito believed he did, and he thought he had the power to destroy it with the staff. And he's not just destroying the world, he's apparently obliterating it, meaning he's gonna leave no trace of it. And he said that because he forgot about his plan at the moment, he was so angry he just wanted to destroy everything. And it would make sense for him to be at that level considering that the second stage of the Ten Tails had chakra comparable to a small planet. Using water sensing, you could see that it was shaking the planet and growing away from it. So to finally conclude, that's how strong I think Hashirama is. I think he's roughly around planet level, so slightly slower and weaker than Yamamoto. But there are other traits that he might have over Yamamoto that might lead to him winning the fight. For example, intelligence. We know Hashirama has this overall better combat intelligence and better combat intelligent feats than Yamamoto. We know he can do multi-step plans, also being capable of working together with other Hokage to effectively execute advanced plans. Whereas Yamamoto really tries to overwhelm his opponent using his spiritual pressure and raw power most of the time. Not to say that he's dumb, but he doesn't really have many feats. And it almost seems like Yamamoto lacks a distinct fighting style as well. However, all of this is made up for in combat experience. I do think, in all fairness, when it comes to combat experience, Yamamoto is over 1,000 years old, and he has killed over 1 trillion opponents, so he can probably stay more composed under pressure than Hashirama against him. Yuha even claimed that Yamamoto was from a brutal era, in which he was the most brutal, since he annihilated all of the Quincy. So I think Yamamoto shows less chivalry, and he's more willing to get the job done, whereas Hashirama might hold back to keep the fight fair. We're gonna move on to the most interesting part of the video, in my opinion, and that's hacks. What kind of abilities do the two have? We know that Yamamoto is his Kido master, and should be able to use all the expected Kidos like the Time Freeze Kido and a Soul Dragon, etc. Yamamoto's knowledge of Kido is so great that he can perform them without calling their names, even some forbidden ones. Although Hashirama would have spiritual defenses since we've seen chakra users interact with souls before. And we know in the game Naruto Revolutions, Madara is capable of rewinding time and using time-based abilities, yet isn't able to beat Hashirama. And Revolutions is meant to be canon to the anime at least. One ability that Hashirama has up his sleeve is obviously wood release, nativity of trees or deep forest emergence. You can create a forest in an instant to restrain Yamamoto, to hinder him, but you can also use this ability called deep forest bloom, where his trees grow these flowers that produce pollen, and if you inhale this pollen, then it pretty much just puts you to sleep and you're rendered unconscious. Now obviously if Yamamoto breathes this in, then it's pretty much GG, he loses, but knowing Yamamoto, he's obviously got access to fire and he wouldn't let him set up something like this, he'll just burn it instantly. And everybody knows how you deal with plants, you burn them. And this moves us on to the elemental advantage. Now I'm sure you guys knew I was going to talk about this. The elemental advantage is something that has to be talked about because it's wood versus fire. And you guys probably don't need me telling you that fire beats wood, duh. Plants like trees require carbon dioxide to photosynthesize. Unfortunately for Hashirama, flames are enhanced by carbon dioxide. So I mean, he has his work cut out for him against Yamamoto. You know, he has a 15 million degrees burning flame. And that obviously moves us on to Yamamoto's Bangkai. We haven't really talked about it in general yet. It's a power that can destroy the world, in particular burn down the Soul Society. Now, when you burn something down, usually it means it's some sort of structure that's been turned into ashes and has collapsed onto the ground. So I don't think he's blowing up a planet or melting a dimension or something. It seems like the Soul Society in this context is referring to the actual society that he can bring an end to. Since we know he's evaporating all of the water within the Soul Society, Shinsui's lips are going dry, we see the water within the Soul Society beginning to evaporate. So just like Kurama was gonna destroy the world by life wiping it, maybe Yamamoto's doing a similar thing. Now this is not to say Yamamoto can't destroy a planet, it's just that this ability in particular doesn't necessarily mean he's gonna blow up a planet. We know he can focus the core of the sun's heat 15 million degrees into the tip of his blade, and even cloak his body in that kind of heat. But can Hashirama deal with that? Well, if you think he can tank Biju bombs, which he probably can since he can slap them about and he has to fight them, Biju bombs probably produce that kind of heat since they're pretty much vaporizing anything they touch and they're destroying that much ground. They seem to be nuclear based. If you don't think they do, then perhaps Hashirama can't handle that heat. Now, I don't think I'm exaggerating with him being able to take that kind of heat anyway, considering that Madara's armor was, at least for a good while, resisting Sasuke's Amaterasu. Itachi's Amaterasu was stated to burn with the heat of the sun, or as hot as the sun. Obviously it's not stated to burn as hot as the core of the sun, but still being the heat of the sun is impressive. I mean, it could be the core of the sun, it's never really specified. And obviously that's how hot it would have burnt very early on. Obviously Sasuke's Amaterasu is probably far more powerful than Itachi's at this point, so it could burn far hotter. Now even if Hashirama couldn't take that kind of heat, and it began to burn Hashirama, don't forget that Hashirama has this regeneration factor. And this regeneration factor was meant to be unrivaled, even by Tsunade. Anything Tsunade could do, like regenerate entire limbs, organs, that kind of thing, Hashirama could do instantly without having to activate any kind of jutsu and any repercussion, at least during the battle. And so what would happen is, you would see his skin melt off if he couldn't take that kind of heat, but he would carry on regenerating, so it might kind of be like that Invincible fight. I don't know if you guys have read Invincible. I don't want to spoil too much, but we know Mark, the main character Mark's not very good at taking a lot of heat. So we see his skin kind of melt off, yet he's still able to fight on. It might kind of be like that for Hashirama since he's constantly regenerating as his skin's burning off. And this might be kind of irritating for Yamamoto. The only way Yamamoto can take him out is if he destroys him completely. We know his sword might have some sort of existence erasure with his techniques east and north, since they apparently just remove you from existence, so they might just destroy you on like an atomic level. So he needs to get Hashirama in one foul swoop, and he might be able to do that, it's hard to say. Talking about his other Bangkai abilities other than east and north, he has an ability called south, where if he impels the tip of his sword, which burns at 15 million degrees into the ground, Yamamoto calls upon trillion corpses of those that he's killed. And so these corpses are like zombies, they could even restrain Royd. But Royd was emotionally affected when he saw his fallen comrades, so we can't say how strong the zombies are, he might have just been dazed or something. I assume they all vary in power, it depends on who he killed and who he's bringing back. But I can say they would at least make a good distraction against Hashirama. I can just imagine Hashirama trying to deal with them, using his several thousand hands jutsu to pummel them, but the zombies just keep on coming. And yeah, that brings me on to the conclusion. If it wasn't obvious enough, Yamamoto wins. Now both are around the same speed and power. Obviously, Yamamoto has a slight advantage in power and speed. But you gotta remember, like I said, he's got the elemental advantage. He's got that experience, he can overwhelm him with zombies, he's just got more abilities in his arsenal. Ultimately, Hashirama is in the mid-tier of planet level, whereas Yamamoto is in the higher tier of planet level. In comparison to Naruto characters, Yamamoto would be closer to a 6th Path's Madara level of power than Hashirama. So Yamamoto was always going to win this, I feel. If you disagree with this outcome, comment down below. Don't forget to subscribe. Remember, when I reach 20k, I will make that Naruto versus Ichigo video. You can check out the other videos I've done in the past, like Aizen vs Madara, well, react to Death Battles video. Just let me know what you want to see, and thank you for watching the video. I'll see you next time. Peace.